he snarled as the BMW's tires squealed. The car shot down the street, red taillight shrinking, until it whipped around a corner and vanished. In the deafening silence left behind, Everett stood in his front yard panting, fist clenched, chest heaving with rage and heartbreak. The autumn night was quiet again, as if nothing had happened, as if his entire world hadn't just been blown apart. His jaw set, Everett turned and walked back into the house. The front door creaked eerily in the aftermath. From upstairs, he heard a broken sound, a muffled sob. Vanessa. Everett shut the door with a heavy thud and leaned against it for a moment, trying to steady the tempest inside him. He had so many questions, so many emotions clawing at his throat. He needed answers. No, he deserved answers. Steeling himself, he ascended the stairs once more. His home felt foreign now, every shadow hostile. He stopped at the bedroom doorway. Vanessa sat huddled on the bed in a tangle of sheets, mascara-stained tears streaking her cheeks. She looked small, terrified, guilty. For a long moment, Everett just stood there, his face stern but his eyes betraying hurt. The woman he loved, the mother of his son, had just destroyed their life together in one night. He wanted to yell, to cry, to ask a million questions all at once. Instead, he spoke slowly, each word trembling with controlled anger. "Who," he said, voice rough, "was that man? Wait, I need to tell you something important. Have you ever realized that you keep watching my videos but haven't subscribed yet? This video has reached this point, which means you're enjoying it. So why not subscribe? I have a big goal, 5,000 subscribers, and you can help me reach it. Think about it. If you don't subscribe now, you might miss my next big video. This is the moment. Hit that subscribe button now. Do it now. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss out. I know you'll do it. And when we hit 5,000 subscribers, I have a special surprise for you. Now, let's continue story. Vanessa flinched at Everett's question as if struck. Her lips parted soundlessly, chest heaving beneath the crumpled sheet. For a moment, the only sound was the rain beginning to patter against the window when had it started raining. Everett waited, every muscle in his body coiled tight, his question hanging between them like a drawn gun. Vanessa stammered, wiping at her cheeks. "Everett, I'm so sorry." Her voice was small and shaking. "It's not. I never meant. Who is he?" Everett cut her off, his tone icy now. He stepped further into the room, the soft carpet muffling his footfalls. He couldn't bear to get too close. The betrayal radiating off the bed was like heat from a fire. "I don't want apologies. I want the truth." Vanessa looked down, clutching the sheet to herself as if it could shield her from what she'd done. Her dark hair fell over her face. "His name is Nick." Everett's stomach lurched at hearing the man given a name. Nick. He didn't recognize it. Not a friend or co-worker of his, at least. That brought a small, hollow relief. At least it wasn't someone he had trusted as well. But it was cold comfort. His wife still sat before him, half naked from another man's touch, speaking that man's name. "Nick who?" Everett demanded sharply. When Vanessa didn't answer immediately, he snapped. "Nick what? You don't get to hide him." His voice climbed, anger cracking through despite his effort to restrain it. Vanessa winced. "H. Hartman," she whispered. "Nick Hartman." Everett let the name sear itself into his mind. Nick Hartman. A stranger who had strolled into his life and set it ablaze. "How do you know him?" The interrogation in his tone was unmistakable. Everett sounded every bit the federal agent cornering a suspect. Vanessa's eyes flicked up to him, then away, ashamed. We met at the gym, months ago." She swallowed hard. "I didn't plan for this to happen. I swear to you." "How long?" Everett asked through clenched teeth. Her voice broke. "About 6 months." 6 months. Everett felt as if she'd slapped him. While he'd been working long hours on cases, trusting that his wife understood, she'd been with someone else for half a year. His jaw tightened so hard it ached. He took a slow breath, trying to contain the tempest inside. "Were you ever going to tell me?" he asked bitterly. Vanessa shook her head, fresh tears falling. "No. I wanted to end it. I tried, Everett, but I was weak and—" She choked on her words. Everett raised a hand, cutting her off. He couldn't hear the excuses right now. They only stoked the flames of betrayal licking at him. He paced a few steps away, running a hand through his short-cropped brown hair. In the bedside lamp's glow, he caught sight of a framed photo on the dresser. Him and Vanessa on their 10th anniversary last year, both smiling, arms around each other. Happy. It nearly made him sick. You have no idea what you've done, Everett said, voice rough with emotion. He turned back to her. Our life, our family. Did none of that matter to you? It did. It does, she cried. Everett, I never stopped loving you. I was lonely, and you were so often away, so it's my fault. He barked out a harsh laugh, incredulous. I was out there working, for us, for this family. And you were doing this behind my back the entire time. Vanessa sobbed openly now. I'm not excusing it. I'm trying to explain. Please, you have to believe me. I never wanted to hurt you. Everett felt a sudden surge of anger, so sharp it frightened him. He tore his gaze from her and noticed her phone glowing faintly on the nightstand beside the bed. The screen lit up with a text notification, another message from this Nick, no doubt. His blood ran cold, fury and curiosity merging. Without a word, he strode over and snatched the phone. Vanessa gasped, scrambling up. Everett, no, she pleaded, reaching out as if to stop him. But she hesitated, clutching the sheet to her body. Everett's hands were shaking as he entered her locked screen code, his birthday. The phone unlocked. The fact that she hadn't changed it for secrecy almost surprised him, but perhaps she never expected to be caught. A message sat on the screen, preview visible. Nick, are you okay? I'm so sorry. Call me. The timestamp was just minutes ago. Everett's stomach churned. The man had the nerve to text her from somewhere down the road, likely. Everett swiped into her messages, anger clouding his vision. Line after line of texts loaded. He forced himself to focus. He saw Nick's messages from earlier in the evening. Can't wait to finally have you all to myself tonight. And Vanessa's replies, me too. Jason is at his friend's, and Everett's away. It's just us. Everett's heart pounded painfully. So she had deliberately sent their son away for this. The betrayal sank even deeper. Jason, Everett muttered aloud, his voice hollow. His eyes snapped up to Vanessa's, and she flinched at the mention of their 15-year-old son. You involved our son in your lie? And no, she sobbed, shaking her head violently. It was a school project. He wanted to stay over at Trevor's and work on it. So I said yes. You thought it was convenient, Everett finished for her coldly. He couldn't listen to her spin this. The fact that their son's absence had been her green light to invite her lover into their home made Everett's skin crawl with disgust. He tossed the phone back onto the bed in front of her. 6 months, he said, voice thick with contempt. In my house. With my wife. Around my child. Each sentence came out more broken than the last. God, Vanessa, her face crumpled. Everett, please. I know I've destroyed everything. But I can fix this. We can fix this. He recoiled as if struck. Fix this, he echoed, a disbelieving anger in his eyes. How could you possibly fix this? Tell me, because I'd really love to know. Vanessa slid off the bed, wrapping the sheet around her like a makeshift rope. She took a step toward him, arms half raised as if she wanted to touch him but didn't dare. We can get help. Counseling. Anything. I will do anything, Everett. I'll never see Nick again, I swear on my life. Just don't leave. Don't throw away everything we have. Everett's chest constricted. Was she really begging him now to not throw away what she had broken? He shook his head, an incredulous, bitter smile twisting his lips. You did that all on your own. Tears streamed down Vanessa's face. I love you, she whispered. Only you. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. Everett felt a sting in his eyes and realized, with surprise and anger, that tears had formed. He blinked them back fiercely. He would not cry in front of her. He refused. A mistake is forgetting our anniversary, he growled softly. A mistake is losing your keys. You don't accidentally fall into bed with someone for half a damn year, Vanessa. She covered her face with one hand, sobbing into it. I know, she moaned. I'm sorry. He couldn't stand the sight of her anymore, her crying, her pleading. It felt like a twisted mockery of the pain he was going through. Everett spun on his heel and marched out of the bedroom without another word. As he hit the hallway, her voice rose behind him, panicked. Everett, wait, where are you going? He didn't answer. He stormed down the stairs 2 at a time. The living room was dark, only distant streetlights casting long shadows through the window. In a fury, Everett flipped on a lamp. The sudden light illuminated the scene of their betrayal, the wine glasses, the wine bottle, the pillows askew on the couch where they'd He grimaced, feeling bile in his throat. His eyes fell on the 2 wine glasses Vanessa and her lover had used. In a swift motion, Everett swept an arm across the coffee table. The glasses and bottle shattered against the hardwood floor with a crash. Red wine splattered like blood across the rug and shards. He stood there, chest heaving, staring at the destruction he'd wrought, so insignificant compared to the destruction Vanessa had wrought on their family. Upstairs, he heard Vanessa's footsteps as she reached the top of the stairs. She hesitated, likely startled by the sound of breaking glass. "Everett," she called timidly. He didn't respond. His throat was tight. Instead, he sank down on the couch, head in his hands. In the silence that followed, only the ticking of the wall clock and Vanessa's soft weeping from the stairs marked time. Everett's gaze drifted to the mantel above the fireplace, where an array of family photos sat. There was Jason's grin at last year's baseball championship, Vanessa and Everett's smiling faces on a beach vacation long ago, even their wedding day framed in silver. Evidence of a happy life, a life that now felt like a beautiful lie. He wiped a hand roughly over his face. He wondered in that moment how he would ever explain this to Jason. Their son looked up to both of them. Jason adored his mother. How could Everett shatter his world as his own had been shattered tonight? Hot anger flared in him again at the thought. This wasn't his doing. This was Vanessa's choice. Whatever fallout came, she had brought it on herself. A creak on the stairs made him turn. Vanessa was descending slowly, still wrapped in the sheet, eyes red and swollen. She approached him cautiously, stopping a few feet away. "Everett," she said in a trembling voice. "Please, talk to me. Yell at me if you want. I deserve it. Just don't shut me out. We have to figure out what to do. Jason will be home in the morning," and, at that, Everett surged to his feet, an expression of fresh torment on his face. "You should have thought of that before," he said, voice low. "Now it's too late." He grabbed his coat from the rack by the front door and shrugged it on, not caring that he was still in the rumpled clothes he'd worn home from work. Vanessa's eyes widened. "Where are you going?" she asked, fear in her voice. Perhaps she thought he was leaving for good. Everett opened the door, letting in a gust of cool rain-scented air. "I need to clear my head," he muttered. His tone left no room for argument. Outside, the drizzle had become a steady rain, but he didn't care. He stepped out onto the porch. Behind him, Vanessa hovered in the doorway, one hand clutching the sheet around her, the other braced on the doorframe as if she needed support to stand. "Everett," she called into the rain after him, voice breaking, "please, come back. We can talk more. I'll do anything." He paused at the foot of the porch steps and looked back at her through the curtain of rain. Under the porch light, she looked small and broken, tears mixing with raindrops on her face. Once, the sight would have moved him to rush to her, to comfort her. Not tonight. "Anything," he echoed quietly, bitterness twisting in his chest. There was a flash of lightning in the distance, illuminating both of them in stark white for an instant. Everett's eyes were cold. "Then pray I can forget what you've done." Before she could answer, he turned away and walked into the night, leaving her under the dim porch light, alone with her guilt. The rain had eased to a misty drizzle by the time Everett pulled up outside the modest 2-story home of Jason's best friend. Dawn was just lightening the sky, a gauzy gray morning after the storm. Everett killed the engine and scrubbed a hand over his face, trying to wipe away the exhaustion. He hadn't slept a wink. After leaving Vanessa crying on the porch, he'd spent the remaining pre-dawn hours driving aimlessly through the sleeping city, battling the cyclone of emotions within him. At some point, his FBI instincts kicked in. He needed to get to his son before Vanessa did. Now, at barely 6:30 a.m., he was here to pick up Jason. He'd send a terse text to the friend's mother, an apologetic request to retrieve Jason early due to a family emergency. That was enough to rouse concern and cooperation. The front door opened, and 15-year-old Jason Cole stepped out, backpack slung over one shoulder. His sandy brown hair stuck up in cowlicks, and his eyes were heavy with sleep and worry. Everett recognized that look. Jason always chewed his lower lip when he was anxious. He must have sensed something serious was wrong. Jason said a quick goodbye to his friend hovering in the doorway, then trotted to the car. Everett unlocked the passenger door, and the teenager slid in. "Dad?" Jason asked cautiously as he buckled up, glancing at Everett. "Mrs. Ruiz said there's an emergency. Are you okay? What happened?" Everett forced a tight smile. I'm, I'm okay, buddy. His voice came out more strained than he intended. He couldn't bring himself to lie outright. We'll talk. Not here, but we'll talk. I promise. Jason looked at him for a long moment. Even at 15, he had Everett's perceptiveness. His gaze flicked over the dried rain on his father's jacket, the drawn, tired eyes, the tension in his jaw. Is it Mom? He asked quietly. Fear crept into his voice. Did something happen to Mom? Everett's hands tightened on the steering wheel. If only you knew. She's safe, he replied carefully. It was the truth in the literal sense. Physically, she was fine. But something did happen. Just not the kind of emergency you're thinking of. Jason's brow furrowed in confusion. Everett sighed and put the car in gear. Let's get home first, all right? Then we'll explain everything. Jason nodded uncertainly. As they drove off, the boy peered at his father, concern etched on his young face. Dad, you have a bruise, he said suddenly, pointing at Everett's shoulder. The adrenaline from the night had long faded. Only now did Everett feel the dull ache where Nick had slammed into him. In the mirror, he could see a darkening patch under his shirt near the collarbone. It's nothing, Everett said. Just work. He could tell Jason wasn't convinced. But mercifully, his son didn't press, instead turning to stare out the window. They drove in silence through quiet Saturday morning streets. Everett's mind raced, trying to form the right words. How do you tell your child that one parent has betrayed the other? That the stable foundation of his life was built on cracks? When they pulled into their driveway, Everett noticed Vanessa's car was still there. She hadn't fled, not that he truly expected her to. No, she was likely inside waiting anxiously. The thought made his stomach flip with a mix of anger and dread. He didn't want a scene for Jason's sake, but he knew emotions were raw. Everett cut the engine. Jason was staring at the front porch, where soggy shards of last night's emotional storm still remained. The wine bottle Everett had smashed lay in pieces across the flower bed near the porch steps. The boy's eyes widened at that detail. Dad? Jason started, voice small. Everett took a deep breath. Come inside, son. Let's find your mother and we'll talk. The two of them stepped out into the damp morning air. Everett felt his pulse quicken as he unlocked the front door. Part of him wished he could shield Jason from what was to come, but there was no escaping it. Vanessa was in the living room, perched on the edge of the armchair, still wearing the clothes she'd thrown on jeans and a loose sweater after Everett left. She shot to her feet as they entered, her face pale and drawn. Jason, she breathed, relief and nervousness in her tone. Her eyes flicked to Everett, searchingly, but he kept his expression hard. Mom? What's going on? Jason asked immediately. He hovered just inside the doorway, looking between his parents. Everett closed the door softly and put a hand on Jason's shoulder. Maybe we should sit down. Vanessa nodded, wringing her hands. Yes. Yes, of course. She moved to the sofa. But Jason shook his head, shrugging off Everett's hand. He could feel the tension, the dread, swirling in the room. No, just tell me. You're scaring me. His voice wavered. Are you sick? Is it something with Dad's job? Please, whatever it is, just say it. Everett exchanged a brief glance with Vanessa. She looked miserable, eyes shiny with tears that had run dry. She opened her mouth to speak, but only a faint croak came out. Everett stepped forward and gently guided Jason to face him. Jason, your mom and I, we had a serious problem last night. His voice was as calm as he could manage. It's between us. But it affects you too, and you deserve to know the truth. Jason's face went even paler. Are you getting divorced? The question burst out of him, pained and blunt. At 15, he knew what a marital rift could mean. Vanessa let out a soft sob. Honey, no, I hope not, she said quickly, voice breaking. Your father and I are working through something. Everett's jaw clenched. Working through something was an awfully euphemistic way to put it. He knelt a little to meet Jason's eyes directly. Jason, listen to me. His heart pounded. Last night I came home early from my trip. And I found your mom with someone else. Another man. Jason's eyes widened, uncomprehending for a second. What do you mean? Like, someone was here? Who? Everett felt his throat tighten. He wished he could spare his son the details, but there it was. Your mom was being unfaithful, he said, the words heavy and bitter. She was with another man, here, in our home. The silence that followed was absolute. Jason stared at his father. Then slowly his head turned toward Vanessa. She had buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with fresh tears. Jason took a step back as if the air had punched him. "No," he murmured, denial and shock in his voice. "Mom, tell me that's not true." Vanessa raised her head, eyes overflowing. "Jason, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I made a terrible mistake." "Oh my God." Jason's face crumpled. He was only 15, still a child in so many ways. But in that moment, Everett saw a kind of pain and fury flash across his son's eyes that he'd never seen before. The boy's hands balled into fists. "How could you?" he suddenly yelled, voice cracking. "How could you do that to Dad? To us?" "Jason." Everett stepped forward, putting himself slightly between his son and Vanessa. "Calm down." Vanessa stood as well, reaching out. "I deserve that," she said in a broken voice. "I know. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry, don't." Jason recoiled from her as if she were a stranger. Everett's heart wrenched seeing his son's hero worship of his mother shatter in real time. Jason's fist came up to dash angrily at the tears that blurred his vision. "Just don't. I can't even look at you right now, Mom." Vanessa pressed a hand over her mouth, sobbing. Everett gently grasped Jason's shoulder. "Take a breath, Jace," he murmured. Jason gulped down a breath, but he was shaking. "Is that why you smashed the wine bottle outside?" he asked, voice raw. "Did you fight with that guy?" "Who was it?" Everett nodded gravely. "It was a confrontation, yes. He got away before I could do much." He hesitated, glancing at Vanessa. She was silently pleading with him not to reveal more, perhaps not to paint more ugliness for Jason. But Everett's loyalty was to his son now. "His name is Nick. That's all I know so far." Jason looked to his father, anger burning through his tears. "Did you call the police on him?" "He broke into our house." Vanessa interjected softly. He didn't break in, Jason. I invited him. This wasn't a crime. It was my fault." The admission hung heavy. Jason looked almost nauseous hearing that. Everett feared the boy might indeed be sick. He put an arm around Jason, guiding him to sit on the couch. This time Jason didn't resist, dropping down as if his legs gave out. Everett sat beside him, keeping a supportive arm around his back. Vanessa cautiously sat on the opposite end of the couch, tentatively reaching a hand toward her son. "Jason, I know you're upset. You have every right to be. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you so much." Jason flinched away from her touch. He buried his face against Everett's shoulder like he hadn't done since he was a little boy after a nightmare. "Dad," he choked out, muffled. "What's going to happen to us?" Everett's throat tightened. He embraced his son, one hand on the back of Jason's head. Hey, listen to me. We're going to be okay," he said softly, though he had no idea yet if that was true. He shot a hard glance at Vanessa over Jason's trembling form. "No matter what, you and me, we're going to be okay. I won't let anything break our family apart more than this, all right? I'm here for you, and I'm not going anywhere." Jason nodded against his father, trying to stifle his sobs. Everett held him a moment longer, his own eyes moist. Across the couch, Vanessa wept quietly, her hands twisting in her lap. She looked utterly devastated, but Everett found it hard to summon any compassion just then. After a long silence, Jason sat up, quickly wiping his face. He looked at his mother with a mix of sadness and anger. "I just don't get it," he said hoarsely. "Why would you do this? Dad's the best guy in the world. He's always working so hard for us. And you do this." His voice threatened to break again. Vanessa opened her mouth, struggling for words. I made a mistake," she repeated faintly. "It had nothing to do with you, honey. I never stopped loving you or your father. My feelings for you both never changed." Jason just stared at her, disbelief and hurt etched on his young face. He then turned to Everett. "What are we going to do now?" he asked in a small voice. It was a plea for guidance, for some assurance that his world wouldn't crumble completely. Everett inhaled slowly. It was the question he'd been asking himself since last night. "Right now," he said, "I think it's best if I take you out of here for a bit. Give your mom some space." He shot Vanessa a glance. She nodded shakily, understanding this was as much for Jason's sake as to remove him from the tension. Vanessa wiped her eyes. Maybe you two can go get breakfast? Talk. I'll be here when you get back." It was painfully awkward to discuss even simple plans now. Everett stood, gently helping Jason to his feet. That's a good idea. We'll get some fresh air. Jason stood, but before following his dad to the door, he looked at his mother one last time. I'm not sure I can forgive you for this, Mom, he said, voice trembling but resolute in that teenage way that brokered no argument. Not for a long time. Vanessa broke into soft, heartbroken sobs again as Jason turned away. Everett's own heart ached at the scene, but he felt a grim pride too. Jason had a strength in him, a clarity about right and wrong that he must have gotten from somewhere. Let's go, Everett said quietly. He grabbed his car keys from the side table. Father and son left Vanessa standing in the living room, tears streaking her face. As the door closed behind them, Everett put a hand on Jason's shoulder, guiding him to the car once more. They drove in silence to a nearby diner just opening for breakfast. Inside the cozy, fluorescent-lit space, Everett ordered coffee and pancakes for both of them, though neither had much appetite. They sat in a booth by the window. Jason poked at his food, eyes downcast. After a few minutes of quiet, Everett cleared his throat. I know this is a lot to take in, he said gently. I'm sorry you had to find out, and that it happened at all. Jason shrugged, not looking up. It's not your fault, Dad. Everett's chest tightened. Hearing the pain in his son's voice was somehow worse than his own. I just want you to know, whatever happens between your mom and me, I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. Jason nodded, finally meeting his father's eyes. I know. I'm with you, Dad. There was a flicker of fierce loyalty in the boy's gaze that both comforted and saddened Everett. For a moment they ate in silence. Outside, the morning was brightening, golden light breaking through the clouds. It felt cruel that the sun could shine after such a dark night. Jason pushed his plate away and asked quietly, Do you still love Mom? Everett was caught off guard by the directness. He opened his mouth, then closed it, considering. Did he? The love was buried under so much hurt and anger right now that he honestly didn't know. I'll always care about her, he answered slowly. She's your mother. We have a lot of years together. But after what she did, he sighed deeply. It's not that simple anymore. Jason fiddled with a sugar packet, tearing it open and spilling crystals on the table. Are you going to leave her? Like, divorce? Everett rubbed his brow. I haven't decided anything yet. Last night, I was sure I never wanted to see her again. Today, I don't know. This is hard for me too, Jason. I get it. Jason swallowed hard. I hate what she did, but she's still my mom. Everett reached across the table and squeezed his son's arm. I know, and you have every right to love her and be angry with her at the same time. However you feel is valid. Jason blinked back tears that threatened again. I never thought something like this would happen to our family. Everett nodded, his expression grim. Neither did I. He paused, then added in a lower voice. And I don't intend to let that man, or anyone, tear us apart further. That I promise you. Jason looked up, a question in his eyes. What do you mean? Everett realized his tone had darkened unconsciously. He sipped his coffee, debating how much to say. I mean, I'm not going to let him get away with what he's done. He doesn't just get to walk into our lives and walk back out without consequences. A spark of anger lit in Jason's features. Good, he muttered. He should pay for this. Everett studied his son carefully. I don't want you worrying about that. It's my job to deal with him, all right? Jason frowned. But no buts, Everett said firmly, though he softened it with a small sad smile. I'm the adult here. And I also happen to be an FBI agent, remember? I have ways to handle this. Jason seemed to relent a little, but he still looked troubled. Just be careful, Dad. I mean, you're really mad. I am too, but I don't want you to do something that could get you in trouble. Despite everything, Everett felt a swell of affection and admiration for his boy. Jason was worried about him even now. Don't worry. I won't do anything reckless, he lied, not entirely sure himself what he might end up doing when it came to Nick Hartman. But I will make sure he answers for what he did. Jason nodded. After a moment, he said quietly, Can I help? I mean, even if it's just finding out who he is or something? Everett hesitated. The protective father in him wanted to shield Jason from any further involvement. But another part of him recognized Jason's need to do something, anything, to regain a sense of control. It was the same drive Everett himself felt burning in his gut, the need to act. We'll see, Everett said at last. First, I need to gather some information. I only got his name last night. Jason offered. Mom mentioned she met him at the gym. Is he from around here? Do we know anything else? Everett recalled a few details: the silver BMW, the scar, the tattoo on the man's arm. I have some leads, he said, and I'll use every resource I can to find out everything about him. If he has any skeletons in his closet, I'll dig them up. Something steely had entered Everett's voice without him meaning to. Jason looked at him with a mix of concern and admiration. Okay, the boy said quietly. He seemed to take a measure of reassurance in his father's determination. Everett checked his watch. They'd been gone nearly an hour. He wondered what state Vanessa would be in when they returned. Part of him didn't want to go back at all, but they couldn't stay at the diner forever. We should head home, he said softly. Figure out the next steps. Jason looked reluctant, but agreed. They paid and left the diner. The sky was clearing to a pale blue. The storm truly passed, but the chill of the previous night's events remained. On the drive back, Everett glanced at Jason. How are you holding up? Jason shrugged, staring ahead. I'm okay. I mean, I'm not, but I will be. I have you. Everett felt a lump in his throat. He reached over and squeezed the back of Jason's neck affectionately. Always. As they turned onto their street, Everett's mind shifted gears to what came next. There would be difficult decisions. Living arrangements, counseling perhaps, at least for Jason if not for himself. His marriage, that might well be beyond saving. That thought brought a stab of sadness. He had truly loved Vanessa, still did in some buried, betrayed way. But he couldn't imagine forgiving her easily, if ever. Not when the image of her with that man was burned into his mind. And then there was Nick Hartman. Everett's jaw set in a hard line as they pulled into the driveway. He noticed something then. A set of wet tire tracks on the asphalt that hadn't been there earlier, as if a car had pulled in and out while they were gone. An uneasy prickle ran up Everett's spine. He hadn't expected Nick to dare come near his house again so soon, but his instincts told him something was off. He parked and quickly scanned the surroundings. No unfamiliar cars now. Maybe it was nothing, a delivery truck turning around. Still, Everett's hand hovered near his hip out of habit, where his holster would normally be. He cursed under his breath, remembering his service weapon was still locked away upstairs where he'd left it after his trip. He would have to bring it with him from now on. Jason noticed his father's alert posture. Dad? What is it? Everett shook his head slightly. Not sure. Just stay behind me, okay? Father and son approached the house. Everett tested the front door and found it unlocked. He distinctly remembered locking it when they left. A spike of alarm went through him. He gently nudged Jason back. They stepped inside cautiously. Vanessa? Everett called. No answer. The living room was empty, the silence heavy. Mom? Jason called out, voice quavering. Still no response. Everett's heart started to thump. He moved quickly through the downstairs, kitchen, dining room. No sign of her. As he rounded back toward the foyer, his eyes fell on the floor near the staircase. The sheet Vanessa had been wrapped in earlier was crumpled there, abandoned. And next to it, something gleamed on the wood floor. Everett crouched and picked it up. It was Vanessa's cell phone. The screen was cracked, as if it had been dropped. A tendril of dread curled in Everett's gut. He thumbed the power, dead. It must have been damaged or powered off. Jason hovered anxiously. Dad, where is she? Everett rose slowly, mind racing. It wasn't like Vanessa to leave without her phone, especially not after what happened. Her purse was still on the side table. He's gone. Maybe she left in a hurry? But why? He strode to the front window and looked out, half expecting to see her car gone. But her blue sedan was still right there in the driveway where it had been. She hadn't taken her car. She hadn't taken her phone or purse. It was as if she'd just vanished. Everett felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. A terrible thought struck him. Had Nick come back? Those tire tracks, had he returned while they were out and done something? Jason, go wait in the car, Everett said tersely, turning to his son. Jason's eyes widened. Why? What's going on? Where's Mom? Just do it, Everett ordered, perhaps more harshly than intended. I need to check something. Now, Jason. Frightened by his father's tone, Jason obeyed, stepping back outside onto the porch. Everett dashed upstairs, taking the steps two at a time. Vanessa, he shouted now, panic edging his voice. He threw open the bedroom door, not there. The bathroom, empty. Guest room, empty. But on the hallway floor, near the back door that led out to the yard, he saw muddy footprints. 2 sets. One looked like Vanessa's small prints from her bare feet, heading toward the door. The other print was a man's boot, larger, alongside hers. Everett's blood went cold. He pushed open the back door. It swung out to the yard, which backed onto a small patch of woods. The ground was wet and trampled. Tire marks scored the grass near the back gate that led to the side street. Someone had driven a vehicle up to the back of the house. All signs painted a terrifying picture. Vanessa hadn't simply left. She'd been taken. Everett's fists clenched. Whether Nick or someone else, someone had come into his home and taken his wife, his betrayer, yes, but the mother of his child, against her will. The evidence was stark and chilling. In that moment, Everett's anguish and anger coalesced into an icy resolve. Betrayal or not, he would find Vanessa and bring her home safely. And if it was Nick Hartman who'd done this, the man had just turned a domestic nightmare into a criminal haunt. Everett stepped back inside and locked eyes with Jason, who hovered anxiously at the threshold of the open front door. He had heard his father shouting and the alarm in his voice. "Dad?" Jason's voice trembled. "Where's Mom? What happened?" Everett moved toward his son, placing steady hands on the boy's shoulders. He mustered all the calm he could for Jason's sake, even as his heart pounded with fear and fury. "Jason, listen to me carefully." His voice was firm. "Your mother might be in trouble. I think someone took her from the house while we were gone." Jason's face went blank with shock. "He took her? Who? Nick? That guy? Why would he?" Everett's eyes blazed. "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Right now, I need you to stay calm and trust me. Can you do that?" Tears formed in Jason's eyes again, panic setting in. But he nodded, swallowing hard. "Why, yeah." Everett pulled his son in for a quick, fierce hug. "We're going to get her back," he promised in a low voice. Whether it was out of lingering love or simply duty and the need for justice, Everett wasn't sure. But he knew one thing. Nick Hartman had just made the biggest mistake of his life. As Everett grabbed his keys and ushered Jason back to the car, his mind was already racing through the steps ahead. Secure Jason's safety, alert his FBI team discreetly, track any leads on Nick's whereabouts. This was no longer just about betrayal and revenge. It was about saving Vanessa's life. Jason slid into the passenger seat, wiping his cheeks, eyes hardening with determination despite his fear. Everett started the engine, adrenaline surging. "Dad?" Jason asked, voice steadying as he braced himself. "Yes, son." Jason met his father's gaze with a resolve beyond his years. "I'm with you. Whatever it takes to get Mom back. I'm with you." Everett nodded, a grim smile touching his lips despite the circumstances. The ultimate payback had just taken a turn he never expected, but one thing was certain now: father and son would face it together. And whoever had done this was going to regret ever crossing FBI agent Everett Cole and his family. The next 48 hours passed in a haze of tense waiting. Vanessa hadn't been abducted, not in the criminal sense, Everett discovered quickly. The tire tracks, the footprints, the panic, all staged. Security footage from a nearby neighbor's doorbell camera caught just enough. Vanessa, dressed in a hoodie and cap, climbing into a waiting car. Alone. Voluntarily. No struggle. No Nick. She hadn't been taken. She'd left. Voluntarily. Worse, she hadn't contacted anyone since. Her phone remained off. No calls to Jason. No messages. No note. Nothing. And now Everett was certain of something deeper. Vanessa was hiding, not just from him, but from something. Or someone. And that someone had to be Nick Hartman. He needed to find him. Everett started by following the only thread he had, the gym. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Everett stood parked across the street from Ironcore Elite, the upscale gym Vanessa had attended for the last year. It wasn't far from downtown, clean, boutique, the kind of place filled with personal trainers, overpriced smoothies, and hidden affairs. Vanessa had told him she joined for yoga. The irony stung now. Everett watched through his tinted windows. His FBI instincts told him this was more than a casual hookup. Nick wasn't just a lover. He was connected, careful, dangerous. Then, just before 8 a.m., the man appeared. Nick Hartman stepped out of the building wearing fitted gym clothes, earbuds in, a towel slung over his shoulder. Everett recognized him instantly, scar over his eyebrow, confident walk, arms heavily inked beneath the sleeves. But this time, seeing him in daylight, something else clicked. Nick didn't just look like a gym rat. He looked like a man used to power. Everett snapped photos from his dashcam setup, logging every movement. Nick climbed into the same silver BMW Everett chased that night, plates freshly changed. Registered under an LLC. Classic laundering tactic. The BMW pulled out. Everett followed at a distance. Nick drove uptown, turning into a parking garage beneath a tall glass building with dark windows. Everett rolled past and clocked the signage. Silvercrest Investments. The name hit him like a punch. Silvercrest, it had been flagged in a now-dropped fraud case months ago. Everett had even reviewed the case once in passing. Something about misappropriated city development funds, shell companies, laundering. The lead agent, Marcus, had closed the file citing lack of evidence. And now Nick Hartman was walking into that building like he owned the place. Everett parked, heart pounding. He snapped one last photo of Nick entering the elevator lobby, then sat back, staring at the Silvercrest sign. His mind worked fast. Nick wasn't just some random fling. He was deep into something bigger, something that Vanessa had gotten tangled in. He pulled out his phone and opened the old FBI case file from memory. Buried in the financials was a familiar name, Vanessa Cole. Not as a suspect, but as a communications consultant on one of the city projects tied to the case. A cold realization washed over him. Vanessa hadn't just betrayed him with her body. She'd used her position, her network, her marriage, to get close to something criminal. She was involved with a man under investigation. She might have even helped kill that investigation. And Everett's own bureau had shut it down. Why? Was Vanessa in over her head? Was she being used by Nick? Or was she a willing part of this game? Everett looked at the photo of Nick again, standing tall, laughing, confident. He imagined him sitting beside Vanessa in bed, whispering secrets, laughing about the lies. Using her. Or maybe using each other. Whatever the truth was, it was time to find it. And Everett wouldn't just find it. He'd expose it. Back at home, Jason sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through his school tablet with a half-eaten bowl of cereal beside him. He hadn't gone back to school since Vanessa disappeared. And Everett hadn't pushed him. Jason was quiet. But Everett could tell his son was processing. Watching. Absorbing everything. Any update? Jason asked as Everett stepped inside, dropping a folder on the counter. I found him, Everett said. Jason straightened. Nick? Everett nodded. He runs a company called Silvercrest. Ever heard of it? Jason shook his head slowly. Is that bad? Everett grabbed a pen and sketched a quick map on a scratch pad. Arrows, names, numbers. It's tied to a fraud case from last year. A lot of money went missing from a city development fund. The case was dropped by my department. Quietly. Now Nick's name is back in the mix. And your mom's too. Jason paled. You think mom was part of it? Everett hesitated. I don't know. Maybe she was used. Maybe she knew exactly what she was doing. Jason's jaw tightened. You think she ran because she was scared of him? I think she ran because someone told her to. There was a beat of silence before Jason asked, What do we do now? Everett looked at his son, a boy caught in something no child should be near, and made a decision. We build a case, he said. Carefully, quietly. If Silvercrest is dirty, we find the dirt. And we bury them with it. That night, Everett returned to the garage, now his war room. He pinned Vanessa's photo beside Nick's. He added the Silvercrest logo. Then he drew a circle around all three. He pulled up the closed FBI file. Nearly everything inside had been redacted. But one name remained in the approval signature. Assistant Director Morrison. Everett stared at it for a long time. Morrison was clean. Trusted. She'd mentored him for years. If she signed off on closing this case, it wasn't random. Someone had gotten to her. That changed the game. Because now, this wasn't just about Vanessa. It was about his own bureau. And something about that made Everett more dangerous than ever. The next morning, Everett arrived at FBI HQ with purpose in his step and fire in his veins. The world might have shifted under him, but he was still Everett Cole, and he knew how to ask the right questions without raising alarms. He started with his former partner, Marcus O'Neill. Tall, affable, always a bit too polished. Marcus was the kind of guy who smiled through every interrogation. He'd been Everett's partner for nearly 5 years. Until now, Everett had trusted him like a brother. They stood by the vending machine in the break room. Casual. Off the record. Heard you took a few days off, Marcus said, sipping coffee. Everything all right? Everett shrugged. Personal stuff. You know how it is. Marcus gave him a long look. Vanessa? Everett raised an eyebrow. Why do you ask? Marcus chuckled awkwardly. Come on, man. You know how tight we all are here. Word gets around. Everett smiled thinly. Yeah, I'm learning that. Marcus took another sip. You, looking into that Silvercrest thing again? The question came out too fast. Too rehearsed. Everett's stomach dropped, but his face stayed neutral. Why would I be? No reason, Marcus said quickly. Just thought I saw your name on some old logs. Figured you were revisiting things. Everett tilted his head. You closed that case, didn't you? Marcus nodded. Yeah, didn't go anywhere. You sure about that? A pause. Marcus's eyes shifted. We all get pressure sometimes, Ev. You know how it works. There it was. Everett leaned in slightly. Pressure from who? Marcus smiled faintly. You don't want to know. Everett's expression didn't change. But inside, something snapped. Whatever this was, it wasn't just personal betrayal anymore. It was institutional. Protected. Buried. And that meant one thing. He would need to dig deeper. Much deeper. He left Marcus with a polite nod and walked straight to the parking lot. As he opened his car door, his phone buzzed. An anonymous message flashed on screen. Stop digging. This isn't your war. Walk away while you still can. Everett stared at the message, then deleted it. He sat behind the wheel, looked out over the city skyline, and spoke aloud, calm, steady, and full of quiet fire. You came into my home, he said. Now I'm coming into yours. And he turned the key. Because war had just been declared, and Everett Cole never lost. The rain had returned, a slow, relentless drizzle that painted the city in dull gray as Everett sat in his car just beyond the gates of City Hall. The place buzzed with activity, suits, secretaries, security guards. Normal eyes would see a government building. Everett saw a crime scene. He checked the envelope again, copies of the hidden financial ledgers he'd pulled from Vanessa's private files at home. Buried among the transactions was something explosive, payments routed through shell companies, then directed to the personal consulting firm of Mayor Randall Briggs. Everett didn't want to believe it. Briggs had been a symbol of reform, publicly clean. But money didn't lie. He stepped out into the rain, tucking the envelope beneath his coat. Inside City Hall, the receptionist greeted him warmly. Agent Cole, haven't seen you around in a while. Everett smiled politely. Just here to ask a few questions. The mayor's office was on the top floor. Everett rode the elevator up in silence, his jaw clenched. At the door, Briggs's assistant, a young man named Tyler, gave him a curious look. Do you have an appointment? Tell him it's Everett Cole, he replied coolly. He'll want to see me. Moments later, Everett was ushered into the sprawling office. Mayor Briggs rose from behind his desk with that same camera-ready grin he wore at press conferences. Agent Cole, always a pleasure. Everett didn't return the smile. He dropped the envelope on the desk. We need to talk. Briggs's grin faltered. He opened the envelope, scanned the contents, and visibly stiffened. That's fake. Whatever this is, it's not fake. I double-checked the routing numbers myself, Everett said sharply. Want to keep denying it, or should I start looping in federal oversight? Briggs's smile returned, colder this time. You don't know what you're walking into, Agent. I do, Everett replied, stepping forward. And I know my wife's name is in the same ledgers. So tell me, Mr. Mayor, why is my family wrapped up in your dirty money? For a moment, Briggs didn't answer. Then he looked Everett dead in the eye. Because sometimes, Agent Cole, survival means choosing the wrong allies. And your wife? She chose hers. The tension from the mayor's office clung to Everett like smoke as he walked back to his car. His shoes splashed through shallow puddles, the rain washing the city but not the filth beneath. Briggs hadn't outright admitted guilt, but the glint in his eyes, the subtle warning in his words, it told Everett everything. Vanessa had gotten in over her head. Whether out of desperation, greed, or blackmail, she'd linked herself to dangerous people. Back in his car, Everett sat motionless for a long time, letting the engine idle. The wipers scraped slow arcs across the windshield. He called Rachel Flynn. Everett. Her voice crackled through the speaker. I need to meet, he said. Tonight. Somewhere quiet. They met hours later in the back corner of a downtown diner, long after the dinner rush had faded. Rachel, still sharp-eyed and grounded in grit, ordered coffee. Everett slid her a copy of the ledgers. She flipped through them quickly, whistling low. Mayor Briggs. Damn. That's a story. It's not just a story, Everett said. It's leverage. And I think Vanessa was the delivery system. Rachel looked up, brows drawn. You think she was blackmailed? Or part of it? Maybe both. She's not stupid. She'd never fake her death for an affair. This is bigger. Rachel nodded slowly. You realize, if this story breaks, it's going to burn more than bricks. Good, Everett said. Let it burn. But as he left the diner, his phone buzzed. A blocked number. He hesitated, then answered. Cole, he said into the phone. A disguised voice replied. Stop digging. This is your final warning. Click. Everett stood frozen in the rain. He pocketed the phone, jaw locked. Whoever was behind this, they were watching. And they were afraid. Good. Because that meant they knew he was getting closer. The next morning, Everett returned to the bureau. Officially, he was on a leave of absence. Unofficially, he needed answers. Fast. He passed familiar faces, nodding politely, but his mind was sharp, cataloging every movement, every glance that lingered too long. Had anyone else known? Had his own team betrayed him too? Inside his former office, he sat at the desk, pulling open the secure drawer where he once kept private logs. Empty. Not even the decoy folder he'd left behind remained. He reached for the computer. Password protected. His old credentials were revoked. That wasn't protocol. Someone had deliberately locked him out. His gut clenched. You're not supposed to be here, a voice said behind him. Everett turned. It was Assistant Director Elaine Morrison. Her expression was unreadable. Just tying up some things, Everett said calmly. Old cases. Personal interest. Morrison stepped inside, closing the door. This wouldn't have anything to do with Silvercrest, would it? Everett blinked slowly. Should it? She sat across from him, folding her hands. You were always a sharp one, Cole. One of my best. That's why I'm telling you this once. Drop it. So you did shut it down. I buried it because it was a fire I couldn't contain. You think you're chasing a scandal. But what you're really chasing, it's connected to people who don't appear on any roster. People with power. Influence. Everett's voice dropped. They went after my family. My son. My home. Morrison's gaze softened. Just barely. Then walk away before they go after more. There's no clean end to this. Everett leaned in. I'm not looking for clean. I'm looking for truth. She stood, quietly. Then be ready to lose everything. As she left, Everett stared at the empty desk. He'd already lost everything that mattered. So why stop now? In the shadowed comfort of his garage, Everett turned the lock on a red case file stamped closed. Inside were copies of Vanessa's emails, receipts, and something else, bank data downloaded from a forgotten flash drive in her office. Most men would have focused on the affair. Everett focused on the money. Every trail told a story. With Jake upstairs, earbuds in and locked in his own world, Everett built a private map. He traced transaction routes from Silvercrest to companies in South Dakota, then to offshore accounts in Panama. Each move pointed to laundering on a massive scale. And Vanessa had access. At 11:17 p.m., he found a deposit labeled GS Projects LLC, $500,000, timed just one day before the fraudulent case had been closed by the Bureau. Everett sat back. Someone had paid for silence. Not just his wife. Not just the mayor. Someone inside the Bureau. He printed the logs, locked them in a separate fireproof case. Then, he took a breath and opened a secure channel to Rachel. Got something big, he typed. Bigger than Briggs. Might be FBI. Within seconds, her reply popped up. Meet tomorrow. Bring backup copies. And keep your kids safe. Everett looked toward the ceiling, imagining Jake's sleeping face just above him. No matter how dark this got, Jake would not pay the price. But someone else would. The next morning, Everett stood across from City Plaza, concealed behind mirrored sunglasses and a ball cap. He watched the press conference unfold. Mayor Briggs stood at the podium, flanked by local leaders and cameras. Briggs spoke smoothly, addressing city redevelopment plans. The crowd applauded politely, but Everett wasn't listening to the speech. He was watching who came to listen. A woman in a navy trench coat. Two men in identical suits with earpieces. And in the shadows, 30 feet from the stage, Nick Hartman. He stood in the crowd, relaxed, smiling faintly, hands in his pockets. Like he belonged there. Everett's fingers itched. He resisted the urge to approach. Not yet. Instead, he raised his phone and zoomed in. Snapped 3 silent photos. Then, Hartman's head turned slightly, just enough. Their eyes met. Everett froze. Nick's smile widened. He lifted 2 fingers from his pocket, mimed a casual salute, then disappeared into the crowd. Everett's pulse pounded. That wasn't coincidence. That was a message. I see you. The game had changed. And now it was personal. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Cole house as Everett sat in the dining room alone, staring at the untouched plate in front of him. The house was too quiet. Jake had gone for a walk, his way of processing, coping. Everett didn't blame him. But the silence was starting to feel suffocating. The front door creaked. Everett rose slowly. Vanessa stood just inside, pale, her hair damp from sweat or maybe panic. She wore plain clothes, no makeup, no theatrics. But her eyes, they were wild, sunken. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I didn't come to fight, she said quietly. Everett didn't move. Then why come at all? I had to see you, before things get worse. He gave a bitter laugh. Before. Vanessa stepped forward, wringing her hands. There's more, Everett. It's not just me and Nick. There are others. People, with reach. I know about Briggs, Everett said. I know about Silvercrest. I know about the shell accounts. Her face blanched. You weren't supposed to find that. Well, he said coldly, you never were good at hiding things. She winced. I was trying to protect us. By selling out everything we built? I was scared, Everett. Her voice rose now, cracking. At first, it was just consulting work. Then Nick brought me in deeper. Said if I didn't help, they'd ruin you. Your career. Your clearance. They had dirt on people high up. Everett stepped forward, his voice like steel. So you saved me by betraying me? Clever. I didn't think it would go this far. It always goes this far, Vanessa. That's what you never understood. She looked at him then, eyes full of something like regret, or maybe fear. I'm leaving, she whispered. Tonight. If I stay, I won't make it to next week. He crossed his arms. You already left. She opened the door again, silhouetted in the fading light. Goodbye, Everett. And just like that, she was gone again. But this time, Everett wasn't chasing her. He was chasing the truth. It was just past midnight when Everett found Jake still awake, sitting on the back porch steps, hoodie pulled over his head, phone dark in his hand. You should be asleep, Everett said gently. Jake shrugged. Couldn't. Everett sat beside him. They stared out at the yard in silence, the air heavy with dew. She came back, Everett finally said. For a few minutes. Jake looked over sharply. Mom. Everett nodded. Said she's running. Said there are people after her. Jake's eyes narrowed. Like who? People connected to Silvercrest. To the mayor. To something bigger than I thought. Jake let out a shaky breath. So it wasn't just an affair. No, Everett said. It wasn't. There was a pause. I got a weird message on the tablet, Jake said suddenly. A few days ago. I thought it was spam. Everett turned toward him. What kind of message? Jake pulled out his phone, opened a screenshot. It was a half-written draft from Vanessa's cloud account. If anything happens to me, don't trust anyone. Not even. The message cut off. Everett's blood chilled. She tried to warn you. Jake nodded slowly. I think she wanted to tell me everything. But someone stopped her. Everett stared out into the dark. They're cleaning house. Jake's voice was quiet. Is she really in danger, Dad? Everett answered without hesitation. Yes. Jake tightened his fists. Then we have to help her. Everett looked at his son, surprised. After everything she did? Jake's voice was low but firm. She's still my mom. Everett nodded. All right. Then we do this together. And in that moment, a line was drawn in the sand, between fear and justice, past and future, betrayal and loyalty. Father and son. Side by side. Everett woke to glass shattering downstairs. He shot out of bed, gun in hand, bare feet silent on the floor. Within seconds, he was at the top of the stairs, weapon trained downward. The living room window was broken, curtains billowing in the cool breeze. The wine-red rug was littered with shards. Jake stood in the hall, eyes wide. What was that? Stay back, Everett said, voice low. He crept down the stairs. Every corner, every shadow was scanned, cleared. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Then he saw it. The framed family photo shattered on the ground, face down in the glass. A message was scrawled in red ink across the wall. Leave it alone. Not spray paint. Not blood. Marker. Surgical. Controlled. Everett stepped closer and saw something tucked into the broken frame. A photo. Vanessa. Bound. Blindfolded. Duct tape over her mouth. Still alive. Everett's chest tightened. His fingers curled around the photo as if to crush it. Behind him, Jake whispered, "What the hell?" Everett turned, ushering him back. Upstairs. Now. Jake protested, but Everett's voice snapped. Go. He secured the house, checked all exits, then called Rachel. They've escalated, he said. They've taken her. Rachel's tone was ice. We hit them first. Today. Everett looked again at the photo, Vanessa bruised, but not broken. His throat tightened. This wasn't about infidelity anymore. This was war. Sunrise cast a blood-orange glow as Everett sat with Rachel at a grimy cafe booth downtown, the kind that never asked questions about meetings before dawn. He laid out the new photo, the red message, and the fragments of data he'd collected. Rachel's expression turned from curiosity to fury. They're using her to get to you. Classic leverage. Everett nodded. But it's more than that. She knows something. Something they don't want getting out. Rachel leaned forward. Then we make her dangerous. Leak enough to scare them. Everett raised a brow. Risky. Not leaking it is riskier. By 10 a.m., the first breadcrumb hit the net. Rachel's article was subtle, a financial expose, no names, just questions. But the breadcrumbs were clear. Anyone involved would recognize the threat. And that threat worked. By noon, Everett got a call from a blocked number. A voice he didn't recognize. You think this is a game, Agent Cole? She's a pawn. Walk away before she gets sacrificed. Click. Everett closed his eyes. His hands shook. But he wasn't afraid. He was furious. The system had failed. Now he'd tear it down from the inside. The next day, Everett's access card failed at Bureau HQ. Security pulled him aside. You've been flagged, sir. Orders from up top. Within minutes, he was escorted out. Suspended. Officially, under review. He didn't wait for explanation. He didn't need one. He was too close. And now, he was alone. As he stepped out into the sunlight, phone buzzing with warnings and unsubtle threats, Everett realized something with clarity. The law couldn't help him anymore. But the truth could. And truth was a weapon. He just had to wield it before they silenced him too. Everett had been locked out of every system. Bureau databases, encrypted emails. Even his personal workstation back home showed signs of remote interference. His access was gone, but his memory wasn't. He didn't need a badge to be dangerous. Back in his garage war room, the red string web had grown. Names, photos, accounts, all connected. But there was still one missing piece. Vanessa's last message to Jake, don't trust anyone. Not even. It was incomplete. But maybe it wasn't meant to be finished. Everett stared at the phrase again and again, then opened her old journal. A leather-bound notebook she kept locked in her drawer, filled with cryptic sketches and notes from her work days. Mostly quotes and business ideas. But toward the back, Everett noticed something strange. Page 143. A seemingly random quote. In silence, even the honest sound guilty. But the letters I, S, E, T, H, S, G were all underlined. His FBI-trained mind kicked in. An acronym? A cipher? He flipped back through earlier entries. More underlined letters. When he extracted the sequence from multiple pages, it began forming a path. A passphrase. A code. He ran it through his laptop, tied to one of Vanessa's old cloud storage accounts. Access granted. Inside, a private video file, timestamped 2 weeks ago. Vanessa, clearly shaken, sitting in a parked car, whispering into the camera. If you're seeing this, I didn't disappear by choice. Nick's not just a con. He's working with Briggs, with people above Briggs. Money laundering. Threats. I tried to walk away. I told Morrison. The next day, the case was buried. Everett, if you find this, protect Jake. And watch your back. They're coming. Everett sat frozen. She hadn't betrayed him. She'd tried to protect him, and now she was paying the price. Rain fell in a steady rhythm as Everett pulled up to Rachel Flynn's condo in Midtown. His engine ticked in the silence as he watched her second-floor window light flicker. He had no one left to trust, except her. She opened the door instantly, her eyes scanning the street before she let him in. "You look like hell," she said. "Feels worse," Everett muttered. Inside, he set up his laptop, showing her the decrypted video of Vanessa. Rachel watched silently, her face unreadable. When the footage ended, she nodded once. So she wasn't the enemy. She was the warning. Everett's jaw clenched. They set her up. And they set me up. Rachel sat on the edge of her couch, pulling out her own files. "We do this smart. Publicly. We drop pieces, let them feel the pressure. We make them screw up." Everett leaned forward. "You trust me, Rachel? More than I trust anyone else in this city." He nodded. "Then we do this together." She grabbed her coat. "Let's go to the source." He blinked. "Where?" Rachel's eyes burned. "To the one person who had the power to shut this down from the beginning." Everett felt it before she said the name. Elaine Morrison. The bureau parking lot was nearly empty when Everett and Rachel pulled in just after midnight. Morrison was working late. She always did. But tonight, her security team was doubled. That confirmed everything Everett needed to know. They entered through the backstaff entrance. Everett still had friends in low places. Rachel stayed by the elevator. Everett walked alone into Morrison's office, heart thudding like a war drum. Morrison looked up slowly, unsurprised. "You weren't supposed to find that video," she said. Everett shut the door behind him. "You let them bury it." "I buried it to protect you," she said. "You think I wanted this? You think I don't know what kind of people Briggs answers to?" Everett stared. "You let them take Vanessa." Morrison's face tightened. "I gave her the choice. Testify quietly or disappear. She's missing, Elaine." "She's alive," Morrison said quietly. "But not for long if you keep pushing." Everett stepped closer. "Where is she?" "I don't know. I don't ask questions I don't want the answers to." "You're protecting them." "I'm surviving," she snapped. Everett's voice dropped. "Lethal. Then maybe I'll stop surviving too. But not before I burn every last name off this list." He dropped the photo of Vanessa on her desk. Morrison stared at it for a long time. "Give me something," Everett said, "or I go public tomorrow." A long pause. Then, barely a whisper, "Check the old city records warehouse. Night shift. No cameras. That's all I'll say." Everett turned to leave. Behind him, Morrison said, "They'll kill you if you show up." He paused in the doorway. "Then I'll make sure they don't get the chance." The city records building was a relic, gray stone, rusted gates, a shadow of its former self. Everett parked a block away, body armored beneath a black hoodie, gun tucked at his side. Rachel was on comms from a safe van nearby, eyes on thermal drones overhead. "You sure about this?" she asked through the earpiece. "No," Everett whispered. "But if Vanessa's in there, I can't wait." He scaled the fence silently, broke into a side window, and slipped into the shadows. The building stank of mold and dust. Long hallways stretched like veins. Old boxes stacked to the ceiling. But something wasn't right. Voices. Men in tactical gear. Not cops. Not agents. Mercenaries. Everett counted 3, then a fourth. One of them spoke into a radio. "He's here." They knew he was coming. He ducked behind a file cabinet just as bullets ripped through the air. Sparks flew. Everett returned fire. Quick, efficient, one shot dropping the first man. The others scattered. In the chaos, Everett pushed forward, room by room, until he heard it. A muffled cry. He kicked in a steel door, and there she was. Vanessa. Bruised. Bound. Alive. Their eyes locked. "Everett," she whispered. He rushed to her, cutting the binds. Footsteps echoed. "You move." "I dropped them both," a voice growled behind him. Everett froze. He knew that voice. Nick Hartman. Jake sat at Everett's desk, scrolling through encrypted messages his father had shown him weeks ago. His hands trembled slightly as he decoded part of the file Everett never got to finish. Names. Numbers. And something else, a transfer log. One linked directly to Trevor's father, Jason's best friend. Jake's blood ran cold. His best friend's dad was part of the operation. He called Rachel. "Jake. Rachel, they're not just watching Dad. They're watching me." He forwarded the file. Rachel's breath caught. Stay inside. Lock the doors. No, Jake said firmly. If they're tracking me, I can lead them away. Jake, I'm not just a kid anymore. He hung up, packed a go bag, and stepped outside. The storm was already moving in. But Jake Cole, he was done hiding. Everett stood frozen, hands slightly raised, eyes on the barrel of Nick Hartman's pistol. Vanessa, still on her knees, let out a trembling breath as Nick stepped closer, gun unwavering. You just can't let go, can you? Nick's voice was calm, almost conversational. All that bureau training, and still, you're just a man chasing a woman who doesn't love you anymore. Everett didn't flinch. You're not here because of love. You're here to cover the money. Nick smirked. I'm here to make sure loose and stay tied. And unfortunately for you, you're both very loose. Behind him, one of the mercs stirred. Everett's gaze flicked, saw the slight shift, just enough. He dove. A shot rang out. Pain tore across Everett's shoulder, but he rolled, came up behind a metal cabinet. Vanessa screamed. Nick cursed. Shoot him. The firefight erupted. Gunfire tearing through paper files, sparks lighting the dark. Everett fired back, one bullet striking true. A merc fell. Another rushed forward. Everett dropped him with a clean shot to the leg. Then silence. Nick was gone. Vanessa knelt beside Everett, pressing her hands to his bleeding shoulder. Stay with me, she whispered. He grabbed her wrist. Did you know he was part of this from the beginning? She nodded, ashamed. I tried to leave. He threatened to expose everything. Said he'd go after Jake. Everett's eyes narrowed. And Morrison? She's scared. Controlled. Just like I was. They stood slowly. Outside, sirens approached. Rachel had called backup. Vanessa gripped his arm. We have to find Jake. He's their last piece. Everett looked at her, wounded, breathless, but alive. We will. But as they stepped into the night, a shadow peeled from the alley across the street, watching, tracking, waiting. The rain poured hard now, beating down on Jake's jacket as he waited at the bus terminal across the city. His go bag lay at his feet, earbuds in, though no music played. He felt eyes on him. He turned. Trevor stood across the street. Alone. No smile. No backpack. Just watching. Jake stepped forward, confusion clouding his face. Trevor? What are you doing here? Trevor didn't answer at first. Then slowly, he crossed the street, stopping just a few feet away. My dad told me to stay away from you, he said quietly. Said your family's dangerous. Jake blinked. Your dad's involved in this, isn't he? Trevor didn't answer, but his eyes told the story. You knew, Jake whispered. All this time. You knew he was part of it. I didn't want to believe it, Trevor muttered. But last week I found a burner phone in his truck. And the messages? They weren't just about money. They were about you. Jake felt a chill slide down his spine. Me. Trevor nodded. They're going to use you, Jake. Frame you if they have to. You're the only variable they haven't locked down. Jake swallowed hard. Why are you telling me this? Trevor's voice cracked. Because you're my best friend. And because my dad's not who I thought he was. From across the street, headlights flashed. A black SUV. Jake grabbed Trevor's arm. Run. They darted down an alley as the SUV peeled out, tires screeching on wet pavement. Shots cracked behind them. Jake didn't look back. The betrayal ran deeper than he thought. But so did loyalty. Back in the safe house, Everett stitched his own shoulder while Vanessa sat across from him, trying not to shake. Rachel monitored surveillance feeds. Everyone was running on adrenaline. Then Jake's voice crackled over Everett's burner phone. Dad, I'm okay, but we've got a problem. Everett answered instantly. Where are you? In the East Industrial District. I was heading to the drop point, but Trevor warned me. His dad's working with them. Everett's blood ran cold. What happened? Jake explained quickly about the SUV, the alley escape, Trevor's warning. Jake, Everett said carefully, you need to stay hidden. Don't trust anyone. Not even cops. Jake was breathing hard. I think they're going to pin something on me. Not on my watch, Everett growled. Rachel typed rapidly on her laptop. Tell him to head to Dock 9. I can reroute camera feeds there and stall signals for 20 minutes. Jake, you heard that. Got it. The call cut. Everett stood, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. Vanessa met his eyes. You think they'll hurt him? Everett's voice was stone. Not if I get to them first. Rachel looked up. You have maybe an hour before they try to use the kid as leverage. After that, they make him disappear. Everett nodded once. Then let's end this. Dock 9 was a rusting graveyard of shipping containers and steel shadows. Jake crouched behind a crate, soaked, heartbeat loud in his ears. Trevor knelt beside him, scanning the quiet. Then headlights. A black van rolled in. Jake froze. From the passenger side stepped a man he recognized, Agent Carson, once Everett's colleague. He called out, voice echoing, "Jake Cole, step out. This is a federal matter. We want to keep you safe." Jake's breath hitched. Trevor whispered, "That's the guy who came to our house. Told my dad to stay quiet." Jake shook his head. "They're using the badge." The van doors opened, 2 armed men stepped out. "Not federal." Jake grabbed Trevor's arm. "Now." They ran through stacked containers as the men shouted commands, flashlights cutting through fog. Then, boom. A container erupted in fire, Rachel's drone strike. Chaos broke loose. Everett appeared through the smoke, sidearm raised, Rachel behind him with a backup clip. Shots fired. Jake Dove rolled, crashed into Everett's arms. "You okay?" Everett barked. Jake nodded. "They almost had us." "Not today." Vanessa emerged behind them, a weapon in hand. She locked eyes with Jake. "I'm sorry," she breathed. Jake nodded, just once. Then they ran. They regrouped in the abandoned train station 2 miles out. Everyone bruised. Blood. Smoke. But alive. Rachel hacked into city surveillance. "We got a match from the van plates. Registered to a front company tied to Briggs's campaign donors." Everett stared at the screen. They were trying to silence Jake. Vanessa handed him a flash drive. "There's more." Nick kept everything. Blackmail videos. Wire transfers. Even communications with Morrison. Everett plugged it in. File after file filled the screen. Evidence, undeniable, explosive, career-ending. And in the last folder, a video call log. Mayor Briggs, Nick Hartman, and someone else. Agent Marcus O'Neill. Everett's fists clenched. "My own partner," he muttered. "He was in on it the whole time." Vanessa whispered, "They'll come after you harder now." Everett looked at his son, then back at the screen. "Then let them come." It was just past 2 a.m. when Everett activated a protocol he hoped he'd never need. Red Circle, a private backup plan he designed years ago in case the Bureau ever turned on its own. Hidden in an off-grid laptop he kept buried in a garage toolbox, the program accessed secure drives he'd once stored for blackmail insurance. But now, he wasn't interested in leverage. He wanted exposure. Rachel watched over his shoulder. "You're really doing this?" Everett's eyes didn't blink. "Once these files go out, they can't stop it." She nodded. "Then do it right." He ran diagnostics. It would take 47 minutes to upload all the data, surveillance footage of Briggs laundering campaign money, Nick's meetings with black market arms dealers, and most damning of all, Agent O'Neill in a dark room handing off bureau files to a foreign asset. Vanessa sat across the room, holding Jake's hand. Her voice cracked. "If you do this, we don't get our lives back." Everett didn't turn. "We don't deserve our lives back if we don't do this." Silence. Then Jake stood up beside him. "Let's burn it all." Everett clicked, "Start upload." And the timer began to count down. The warehouse door slammed open. Gun drawn, Everett spun toward the entrance, ready to fire. But it was Agent O'Neill. Alone. No backup. "Hands up." "I'm not here to shoot," he said. "I'm here to talk." Rachel raised her Glock. "Talk fast." O'Neill stepped inside slowly, eyes on Everett. "You were never supposed to be a target. I begged them not to go after Vanessa and your kid." Everett's jaw clenched. "You begged them? You worked for them." O'Neill's face twisted with guilt. "I was forced into it. They had leverage. A case from 10 years ago I buried for my sister. They found it. They said if I didn't play along, she'd go to prison." Vanessa whispered, "So you sold us out." O'Neill looked at Jake. "I tried to stop it." Jake's voice cut through like a blade. "Then help us stop it now." Everett said nothing. Just slid a burner phone across the table. O'Neill stared down at it. "One call. One number. Call Briggs," Everett said. "Tell him you've got the flash drive. Set a meet." O'Neill hesitated. Rachel stepped forward. "You owe us. Make the call." And with shaking hands, he did. The abandoned parking garage under Midtown's Tower District was the chosen location. Gray. Cold. Echoing with danger. Everett's SUV pulled in first. Jake and Rachel stayed behind the barrier with eyes on the rooftops. Vanessa sat in the back, ready, silent, a loaded Glock on her thigh. O'Neill walked into the center of the garage alone, flash drive in hand. Minutes later, a black Escalade rolled in. Mayor Briggs stepped out, dressed sharp, flanked by two armed men. He looked annoyed. "You better be worth my time," Briggs said. O'Neill nodded. "I have everything. Proof of every wire. Every bribe. Even your deals with foreign entities." Briggs smiled coldly. "You're not walking out of here." That's when Everett's voice boomed from the shadows. "Neither are you." From behind parked vehicles, Everett emerged, gun drawn. Rachel flanked him on the left, Vanessa on the right. Briggs froze. "You think exposing me will change anything?" he snarled. "I am the system." Everett walked forward. "Not anymore." Briggs lunged for his weapon, but Everett fired first. One shot. The mayor collapsed, blood blooming on his chest. His guards moved, but Rachel and Vanessa dropped them both in clean, tactical precision. O'Neill dropped to his knees, breathing hard. Silence. Then Jake's voice echoed from above. "You got it all on tape." Rachel looked up. Jake was holding the drone controller, already uploading the entire confrontation live. The people were watching. The lie was dead. By morning, the footage had been shared across every major news network. Mayor Briggs, dead. FBI agent O'Neill, arrested in connection with espionage. Nick Hartman, wanted. And Everett Cole, suspended indefinitely. Branded as rogue, but publicly a hero. Rachel sat across from him at the safe house table, exhausted. They're spinning it fast. Some media is calling it a conspiracy. Others say it's proof the Bureau is broken. Everett lit a cigarette, his first in 10 years. They're not wrong. Vanessa stood at the window, staring out. What now? Jake came in with coffee and a laptop. They found Nick's hideout, he said. A private airstrip outside the city. He's running. Everett stubbed out the cigarette. Then we go stop him. Rachel looked up. You're not a Fed anymore. I don't need a badge, Everett said. I've got justice. Night fell fast as Everett, Rachel, Vanessa, and Jake drove toward the private airstrip. Wind lashed the windshield. Thunder growled overhead. The storm matched Everett's mood. At the tarmac, a jet waited. Nick Hartman was already halfway up the ramp, his coat whipping in the wind. Everett didn't wait. He leapt from the SUV, gun raised. Nick. Into the line. Nick turned, smirking. You're too late, Everett. Vanessa appeared beside Everett, weapon shaking in her hand. I trusted you, she screamed. I gave you everything. Nick raised his hands mockingly. And I took it. Like I always do. Everett fired, a warning shot at Nick's feet. Nick flinched, but didn't move. Jake stepped forward, face hard. You hurt my mom. You came after my dad. You tried to ruin my life. Nick looked at him and laughed. And you think you'll stop me? Jake aimed the second drone controller at the plane. Pressed a button. Boom. A gas line erupted under the jet's belly. Nick screamed as flames roared behind him. Everett tackled him to the ground. Vanessa stood over them both. Gun pointed, tears in her eyes. Goodbye, Nick. Nick Hartman lay on the ground, coughing through the thick smoke rising from the burning jet. Flames reflected in his eyes as Everett pinned him to the tarmac, knee pressing into his chest. You're done, Everett growled. Nick spat blood. You think killing me fixes all of this? Vanessa stood over them, gun steady, her hand trembling. Jake stood a few steps behind, chest heaving, waiting for her to do what no court ever would. Nick looked up at Vanessa and smirked. You were always predictable. Vanessa's finger tightened on the trigger, but Everett reached out slowly, placing his hand on hers. Don't give him the out, Everett said, voice firm but calm. He doesn't deserve your bullet. Vanessa's breath hitched. She looked down at Nick, hatred in her eyes, but slowly, she lowered the gun. Instead, Everett pulled out cuffs. Nick laughed bitterly. Going to arrest me, Agent Cole? Everett snapped the cuffs shut. No, I'm going to expose you. Nick's smirk faltered. Vanessa stepped closer, kneeling beside him. You played everyone, she said softly. But now everyone will watch you crumble. Sirens wailed in the distance. The FBI was coming. And this time, it wasn't to protect the powerful. It was to clean house. The news spread like wildfire. A rogue FBI agent had taken down one of the most well-connected financial puppeteers in the country. With Mayor Briggs dead and Hartman in custody, the media turned their eyes toward the Bureau itself. Rachel's exposé ran front page. Behind the badge, the corruption they tried to bury. Public pressure mounted. Morrison was placed under investigation. O'Neill turned state's witness, offering testimony in exchange for immunity. He sang like a choir. Everett sat in a private hearing room, flanked by Jake and Vanessa. Across the table, the Bureau's internal affairs panel. "You went off protocol," one official barked. "I save lives," Everett replied coldly. "You disobeyed federal orders." "I followed justice." A long silence. Then another panelist leaned forward. "If even half of what you've uncovered is verified, this department owes you an apology." Everett didn't flinch. "I don't want apologies. I want accountability." Outside the room, journalists swarmed the halls. Everett didn't stop to talk. He'd said what needed to be said. And this time, people were listening. The safe house had grown quiet. Vanessa stood in the kitchen, stirring tea, watching Jake from a distance. He sat at the table with his laptop, editing his own digital log of everything they'd gone through. A project for school, he called it. But Vanessa knew better. He was writing the truth, in his way. She walked over, placed a hand on his shoulder. Jake looked up. "Hey," he said soft. Vanessa swallowed. "I know saying sorry won't undo anything. I know that." Jake studied her for a long second. "I hated you," he admitted. "For a while." She nodded. "I hated myself longer." Jake closed the laptop. "But you didn't run in the end. You stayed. Fought. Protected me." Vanessa blinked fast, her voice barely a whisper. "I love you more than anything. I just forgot how to show it." Jake stood, pulled her into a hug. It was stiff at first, but then she collapsed into it, arms around him, tears silent but heavy. In that moment, she didn't feel forgiven, but she felt seen. And for now, that was enough. Weeks passed. The headlines changed. The Bureau, under new leadership, reinstated Everett Cole, but not as a field agent. They offered him something else. A new division. One that monitored internal corruption. A watchdog with a badge. At first, he hesitated. "I didn't do this to get promoted," he told Rachel. "You didn't," she replied. "That's why they need you." He accepted. But with one condition, Rachel joined as senior advisor. She grinned, tapped her phone. "Already cleared my desk." The next day, Everett walked into his new office. No windows, no plaques, just a desk, a laptop, and a locked drawer. He placed one photo inside. Jake, Vanessa, and himself. Taken after it all. A reminder of what nearly broke him and what didn't. The Cole family stood at the edge of a cliff in Yosemite, overlooking the vast horizon. It was their first real vacation. No fear, no surveillance, no missions. Just family. Vanessa breathed deeply. "I forgot what peace felt like." Jake snapped a photo of the view. "Let's make it the start of something." Everett smiled, wrapping an arm around both of them. "No more running. No more secrets." Jake looked up. "Promise." Everett looked him in the eyes. "Promise." Behind them, a new sunrise crept over the trees. It wasn't the end. It was chapter 1 of the life they were meant to live. The Bureau's new corruption unit was quiet at night. Everett's footsteps echoed as he walked the sterile hallways toward the secure records vault. Past cases. Sealed names. Forgotten betrayals. He scanned his card, stepped inside, and locked the door behind him. He wasn't here for work. He was here for closure. From the top shelf, he pulled a single red-labeled case. V-7839, the original Silvercrest investigation. The case that had started it all. He opened it slowly. Inside were photos of Vanessa from 2 years ago, black and white surveillance shots. One of her in a parking lot with Briggs. Another entering Silvercrest HQ. She'd been watched long before the affair. Someone had marked her. Used her. He clenched his jaw. Then he noticed something else, a single sticky note, wedged beneath the folder. One line. He knew before you did. Everett's hand shook slightly as he turned the paper over. A name. Carson. Agent Carson. The same man who tried to rescue Jake at Dock 9. Everett's blood ran cold. There was still one left. Rachel paced behind Everett's desk, reading over Carson's internal file. He worked under Briggs' campaign security detail before he joined the Bureau. That connection was sealed in his file. On purpose. Everett stared at the screen. He was planted, and he nearly got Jake, Rachel added. He disappeared 2 days after the docs. Vanessa entered, holding her phone. He's not gone. I just traced a call to a luxury property outside Palm Springs. Registered to a holding company tied to guess who? Silvercrest. Jake, who had been silently listening, stood. Let me go with you. No. Everett said immediately. Jake didn't back down. You said we'd finish this as a family. Rachel raised an eyebrow. He's not wrong. Everett hesitated. He looked at Vanessa, at Jake, then slowly nodded. Gear up. The final thread was still alive, and it was time to cut it. Palm Springs was quiet at night, too quiet. The house was perched high on a cliff, all glass and steel, glowing like a shrine to arrogance. Everett, Rachel, Jake, and Vanessa moved silently through the dry brush surrounding the compound. Drones above. Jake manned surveillance. Vanessa covered the rear with a silencer. Rachel took the high point with a long-range scope. Everett breached the side door. The interior was modern, sterile, cold. He found Carson in the kitchen, calmly pouring whiskey. You're persistent, Carson said without looking up. Everett leveled his pistol. You're done. Carson turned, hands raised. Not quite. You expose me. I take half the bureau with me. You think the country's ready to hear who else signed off on Silvercrest? Everett didn't blink. Try me. Suddenly, Carson lunged, grabbing the kitchen blade. Bang! A single shot echoed. From behind Everett, Vanessa stood at the hallway entrance, pistol still smoking. Carson dropped, knife clattering. Everett stared at her. She just whispered, no more chances. A week later, the air was still. The storm was finally over. Jake sat at his desk, staring at a stack of unopened letters he'd found in Vanessa's old lockbox. Most were unsent, addressed to him. He opened the top one, dated over a year ago. Jake, if you ever read this, it means I failed you in some way. I want you to know, I was never trying to disappear from your life. I just lost myself. But you were always the reason I fought to come back. I hope someday you'll understand that everything I did, right or wrong, was because I love you. He folded it carefully, then walked to the backyard. Vanessa was trimming a small garden bed. He handed her the letter. She didn't speak, just took it, eyes soft. Jake hugged her wordlessly, arms tight around her back. For the first time, it felt real. Forgiveness didn't come in speeches. It came in presence. Back at the bureau, Everett stood before a clean white wall, newly installed in the main corridor. The integrity wall. Names etched in stone, those who exposed corruption, who risked everything when the system failed. Vanessa's name was there. Rachel's too. And Jake's, listed as the youngest civilian whistleblower in bureau history. Everett stood last. He touched the cool stone. A soft voice came behind him. Agent Cole. He turned. A new director. Clean face. Sharp eyes. We'd like you to stay on. Not just as division head, but as someone who teaches the next generation how to keep the system honest. Everett looked at the wall once more, then back at the director. I'll do it. Not for the bureau, but for the ones who almost didn't make it. The courtroom buzzed with hushed tension. Everett sat with Rachel to his right, Vanessa and Jake just behind him. Across the aisle, a line of disgraced officials stood trial, tied to Silvercrest, Briggs, Nick Hartman, and a decade of hidden corruption. It was more than a trial. It was a reckoning. O'Neill took the stand first, his voice clear, confession honest. His plea deal had ensured his freedom, but at the cost of turning every lie he'd helped protect into courtroom ammunition. Then came the tapes. The jury watched in silent horror as footage showed Briggs' backroom meetings, foreign bribes, and the attempted frame-up of Jake. Everett didn't flinch. He didn't have to. The truth had a gravity of its own now. By the time Vanessa testified, clear, remorseful, but strong, half the courtroom was silent with shame. She spoke not to save herself, but to save others from repeating her fall. I betrayed trust, she said, but I also came back to make it right. And that's what I'll spend the rest of my life doing. The verdicts came swiftly. Guilty. Guilty. Counseling, community service, open apologies. Not everyone forgave her. But she didn't ask them to. She just kept showing up. And Everett? He stood on the back porch one evening, sipping black coffee as the sun dipped below the trees. Vanessa joined him, leaning against the rail. You still don't sleep much, she said softly. Old habit, he replied. A pause. Do you regret saving me? She asked. Everett looked at her. Not the woman who betrayed him, but the woman who survived betrayal. No, he said. You saved yourself. I just stood close enough to see it happen. Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she didn't cry. Because now, they lived. Not as husband and wife, but as parents. As survivors. As two broken people who didn't let the fire consume them. One Sunday morning, Jake pulled Everett into the garage. You kept it all, Jake said, pointing at the evidence wall, maps, photos, strings, printouts. Every piece of it. Everett nodded. This was my war. Jake stepped forward. It's over now. Everett watched as his son gently began removing photos, one by one. He didn't tear them down. He released them. The final photo was Vanessa's, taken the day she disappeared. Jake stared at it, then looked at his father. Burn it? He asked. Everett paused, then shook his head. No. We archive it. We never forget. But we don't live in it. He opened a drawer, placed the photo inside. Then they stood back. The wall was finally empty. And that space felt like breathing for the first time in years. A year later, Everett stood in front of a class at Quantico. New recruits, bright-eyed, idealistic, maybe even naive. But they were listening. He didn't speak from a podium. He sat on the edge of the desk, hands folded. Truth isn't clean, he told them. Justice isn't a straight road. Sometimes the system will try to bury the right thing to protect the wrong people. And if that happens, you don't run. You rise. Applause followed, but Everett didn't hear it. Because outside that room, Jake waited with Vanessa. They were headed out. Road trip, no destination. Just miles, music, and memories. As they loaded the car, Rachel drove up beside them. You heading out? She asked. Yep, Everett replied. No briefings. No guns. Just life. Rachel smiled. You earned it. Jake tossed Everett the keys. I'm driving. Vanessa laughed. He gets that from me. Everett smirked. Let's go before I change my mind. The engine roared to life. They pulled out onto the open road. The sun warmed through the windshield, the past growing smaller in the rearview mirror. And in that moment, everything felt right. Not perfect, but finally right. And now to you watching this. If life ever betrayed you like it did Everett, what would you fight for first? Justice or peace? Tell us below in the comments, and let us know where you're watching from. If this story moved you, even for a moment, we'd love your support. Like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next epic revenge and thriller story we have in store. Until then, take care of yourself, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next one.